Samineh, how as mothers can we teach our kids to cope through schoolyard bullying?
You know, this is something that many of our kids will encounter, as you and I did, you know, growing up. And I don't want to say that it's part of growing up, but at times it might be inevitable. And it's really important for us to know what bullying is, understand, you know, the signs and the symptoms associated with it, and what we can do to try and prevent it. You know, we live in the UAE and it's a multicultural, diverse society. Many people don't have the same definition of bullying as you and I might. So really understanding what it is a great starting place.
And as a mother, what advice would you give to mothers when their children come home and share with them, oh, I'm getting bullied or picked on at school, without bringing our own experience into it too much?
Yeah, I wish it was that clear cut. Unfortunately, let's take a few steps back and acknowledge the fact that kids may not always be upfront with us or tell us. And so moms need to be a little bit more sort of
approachable?
Yes, no, moms need to be a little bit more investigatory, if you will, and put on their investigation caps on to ask questions and to be observant about some of the behaviors of their children. So, for example, they may notice that the kids are missing articles of clothing, or different sort of possessions and belongings are missing without proper explanation. The child now no longer has the same enthusiasm about going to school and complains about symptoms like stomach aches and headaches, and you take them to the GP and the GP doesn't validate any of those symptoms. They may be psychosomatic. The child may display signs of emotional sort of despair, so crying spells and withdrawal. They're no longer as excited as they used to be to want to go out to certain places, their favorite foods, hang out with their friends. And these could be some of the starting signs of the child being bullied. Whether it's signs that we have seen and observed, or the child has come up and told us about what's happening, the really key to all of this is you have to engage with the child and communicate. You've got to talk about what's happening, how they feel, what to do to try and combat it. And that can be done with the child to begin with, but then you need to include the school as well.
Yeah.
So it's not a process that the child should have to tackle independently. It's not a process that the parents should have to tackle only at home, but really it's a sort of triangular process in which we need to include the child, the parents, and the school, so that we understand, why has this happened, what are the root causes of it, how's the child feeling as a result, and how can we move on from this?
Yeah, because sometimes children aren't boisterous or bossy by nature. They are in fact quieter souls, and you shouldn't expect someone to rise up and become someone they're not. They should be empowered to feel comfortable in their true nature, right?
Yes, that's right, absolutely. And some of the characteristics that I described there, if the child has those characteristics naturally, so they're quieter or more withdrawn, or don't have that sort of exuberance that they may portray, that might be part of their character. But what's important is to see if there's a change or a shift in a child's natural character. So when they were previously quite bubbly and now they're not, something might have happened. Also, from a developmental perspective, you know, as we grow, you know, teenagers are often periods of storm and stress, and our once lovable and cute, adorable, sweet child may transform slightly during those years to someone who's a little bit more withdrawn, maybe more serious, maybe colder in temperament. But it's not because they're being bullied, but it could be that they're just experiencing the hormonal changes and going through that developmental stage.
So even before we experience our kids getting bullied, how can we develop a strong sense of self-worth within the individual of the child? Like, what are some you know, suggested ways of ensuring that you're making every effort that your kids have their own sense of self-worth.
Yeah, that's so very important. And if I can put a term to it or a title on that, it would be encouraging and nurturing social and emotional intelligence in our children. Now, that's not something we're born with, you know, entirely. We have the capabilities to a certain extent, but if it's not molded and shaped, then it doesn't develop to its full capability. And what needs to happen is there's got to be discussions to prevent rather than try and combat and prevent later. So to build traits such as confidence in our children, self-esteem, to understand what it means to be proud of who you are, of your nationality, of your ethnicity, of the kinds of foods that you eat. You know, children, these are the issues that children face. They go to school and they get teased for the color of their skin, or the kinds of food that is packed in their lunch boxes. And because they have a desperate need to want to try and conform and belong and fit in, they suddenly start thinking that maybe you're right, these things, these differences are deficiencies and they're bad, and that maybe I should move away from it. But if previously you have built that sort of resilience in your child and the knowledge that these are things to be proud of, where you're from, you know, what you consume, aspects of your character, you know, the fact that you're taller, the fact that you're shorter, to talk about the advantages and the benefits of these traits before a child has had a chance to tease them about it. So once the teasing starts, now the child who is being teased is equipped with answers and an awareness of how to respond to this. And it doesn't come out of left field, you know, as a shock to them anymore.
So, and would you also recommend like affirmations for young children, or?
Yeah, I think there's a few components that I would recommend. I would recommend lots of introspection and self-awareness activities. You know, to talk about who am I, what are my personality traits. I would recommend talking to your child every day about everything that they have to be grateful about. Gratitude, you know.
Love that.
Yeah, and to, at the end of the day, one thing that I do with my son and something that I was taught by one of my professors at university was, at the end of the day, finish that day thinking about what was the best thing about today. And it's kind of like a spiritual or a mental cleansing shower that washes over you, because we're so consumed by what haven't I done, what do I need to do tomorrow, everything that could have gone wrong or went wrong today, and we go carry those things to bed with us. You know?
I love gratitude, and I write a gratitude diary, and in a way of getting close with my son, each evening we hop into bed and we read, and then I ask him, what was the best thing that happened to you today?
Fantastic. Well, you do that naturally.
Yeah, and well, no, I just thought about it with consciously, and I was thinking, what are some of the things that I can give him? But he's 2.5, and now he says to me, like he's remembered it, and he asks me, Mummy, what's the best thing that happened to you today?
Yeah, isn't that wonderful? When sort of those pearls of wisdom that you've shared, when it's shared back, it just, you know, that's an affirmation, isn't it? So gratitude, self-awareness, empathy, you know, teaching our children what it means to harm another child and how do they feel if their feelings are hurt. Alongside with empathy, compassion, you know, talking about what is compassion and how empathy is related to that. And the final component, I think that's really important, if we had to narrow it down to these four, is that kind of moral decision making and social responsibility. That even though if you're not being bullied or going through a difficult situation, if your friend is, you have a more moral responsibility to step in and to try and help that other child. Maybe not personally, but even if it means going and calling a teacher, or removing them from this conflict or volatile situation and saying, come on, let's go, you know, forget about this guy.
So finally, what would be the best advice to other mums to develop, I suppose, a special time of the day to sit down and talk to their kids about what's going on in their life?
It'll vary from child and mother. So depending on the child's natural activity levels and their temperaments of, is it the best time before they go to bed, or is this child the type of child that kind of is like the Energizer Bunny and then suddenly just, you know, drops to sleep. So you need to know your child. For me, it was on the drives, during drives to where I dropped my son off to school and I came home after I'd picked him up. And that was a really good time because I had him next to me, there was focus, he couldn't go anywhere, and it was a good time for us to talk about that. So know what matches and suits your child's natural temperaments. Then what you need to do is have these conversations as preventative measures. So to share stories about the news, in the news that you've heard about bullying. So to use your own examples while growing up that, you know, when I was your age, this is what happened in my school, and to build these narratives and as a result of those stories and narratives to extract the lessons that can be learned. And this provides a very safe and indirect way for the child to learn, but also to relate to the kind of story that's being shared with them. Books are always wonderful, so there's lots of great resources out there about social responsibility, bullying, and other type subjects in which you can read through with the book and stop in the middle of the book and have conversations about, why do you think this happened to the character? You know, what do you think the mother should do in this case? So to involve the child in that discourse and discussion, to see, first of all, what do they understand? Have they absorbed any of the information? And if not, for you to build on that and to reinforce some of the necessary lessons.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome, Janelle. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah.
Fear is the sort of seatbelt that we all need. It's a necessary emotion in this journey of life that protects us. But as long as we don't let that seatbelt strangle us, we'll be okay. Love is the experience of two people coming together and sharing emotions, feelings, plans, dreams, and visions, and working on those on a daily basis to make sure they can make it last. Courage would be the absence of fear, I think, and when we're excited about life's adventures, there are times when we take off that seatbelt and we think, I'm just going to dive into this and enjoy it. We have a logical mind and we have a feeling mind, and both are equally important. So the range of feelings are important. People often only strive towards happiness or positive feelings, which is not correct. Understand and embrace the range of feelings, including sadness and those types of challenges, and you will be able to more holistically experience life.